book that, like, where I feel, like, intense pain at them not being able to be together in my gut. That's, that for me, that's when it's a good book for me. Hello, everyone. My name is Bethany, and welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about my favorite reads of 2020. So these are not necessarily books that got 5 stars. Some of them are, and some of them are just 4 stars. But they're books that, looking back, I still consider my favorites, and I still really, really enjoyed them. And that's why they're my top reads of 2020. And not all of them are published in 2020. These are just things I read in 2020. I'm going to do it by genre. So I have one middle grade, which makes me realize that I definitely need to add more middle grade to my reads because I enjoy middle grade a lot and I don't read it as often as I used to. So, 2021 goals. And then I have 5 YA young adult, 6 if you count a graphic novel, which is technically a young adult graphic novel. Yeah, because it's not an adult graphic novel. So, but it's a graphic novel, so it's a little bit separate from the young adult. And then 9 other reads and a series. I'm gonna start with the middle grade first. Of course, I didn't put that in order in my book stack. Now that I figured out my life. So yeah, we're gonna start with the middle grade first. So this comes as no surprise. My favorite middle grade that I read this year was Ogre Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. This was the prequel to my all-time favorite book in life, which I talk about way too often, which is Ella Enchanted. That she decided to, this came out in the 90s when I was a child. And then she went back and did a prequel with it like 20 years later, which I love. This is great. And I really, really enjoyed it. And this is why it's one of my favorite reads. And I think because it also offers a new story, but also gives you a little bit more perspective on some of the characters from Ella Enchanted. And to revisit the world for like my nostalgia heart was just delightful. And this is why it's one of my top reads for 2020 for sure. I'm going to do the young adult graphic novel first because I think that's a good transition between the middle grade and to young adult. And of course, that no surprise, this is going to be Heartstopper. I read this online first because she does have Heartstopper online. I can include the link for the online Heartstopper comic in the description below. And so I read it all within 2 days. I read all of Heartstopper, and to get the published copies, Volume 1 is the only one that's published in the US. 2 and 3 are published in the UK, but you can get them from Book Depository. And I just had to buy it because it was just so, so, so cute. Queer boy, one's neurotic, one is just a cinnamon roll, and I love Charlie and Nick so much. It's definitely a top read for me for 2020. This is by Alice Osman, for those who don't know. It's just really great, and the comic still comes out 3 times a month, and I've still been keeping up with it until the next volume comes out. So it's just super sweet and super precious, and I still love it, and definitely still one of my top reads for this year, for 2020. The next one for young adult that was one of my favorites this year was Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. That was about 2 rival restaurants where the 2 teenagers are in charge of the Twitter accounts and they start a Twitter war with each other. I just think the Twitter references were so spot on. I feel like one of the problems that I have with young adult novels is that they don't capture Twitter correctly or modern social media very well at all. So this really captured Twitter really well. The romance between the 2 young adult leads was just really, really well done and really sweet, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of my earlier reads this year, and yeah, it was great. I really, really enjoyed that one. The next one for me was Muse Nightmares by Lenny Taylor. This is the second book in the Strange the Dreamer duology. As much as I love Strange the Dreamer just set everything up, but it was really, really slow. But Muse Nightmares is when everything comes together, and I'm obsessed. I loved how the whole story came together, and how all the loose ends that were set up in Strange the Dreamer all came together in Muse Nightmares. And it was my favorite of the duology, and I loved it so much. And Lanny Taylor's writing is just so gorgeous. I can't even. Anyway, yes, definitely one of my favorite reads for 2020. Next one is going to be Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon. That I listened to in audio, so I do not own that, but I definitely want to because I loved this book so much. Definitely made me want to visit Seattle for sure. I mean, I've always wanted to visit Seattle, but now like this book has made me obsessed with wanting to go visit Seattle even more. Young adult romance. They have been bitter rivals throughout high school. On the last day of their senior year, they had team up together for a scavenger hunt throughout the city of Seattle. And they realized that their perceptions of each other were not accurate whatsoever. And I think it's just so much fun. And even though I usually don't like a romance that takes place in 24 hours, the way that she writes it was so well done. I totally believe these characters, and I really bought into their romance. And I think it was just, and the way that they explore how she ties in the romance with the city of Seattle was really, really well done. Totally enjoyed. Excellent. Strongly recommend. Also strongly recommend the audio. The audio was really, really well done. The next young adult book that I was in my top was The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I know I'm like late to the game because like that came out like 100 years ago, but just read it this year. I was such a big fan. I loved, and again, another 24-hour romance, which I don't think I like these, but apparently I do. I can't remember character names worth to save my life. The girl's is supposed to be getting deported, and she meets, I think he's Korean. She's Puerto Rican, I think, and he's Korean. I think that's what it is. The interracial romance between the two of them. And she runs into this Korean guy, and they have some interactions where he ends up trying to help her, and how everything ties in together with some of the side characters was so beautifully done. And then like this like concept of philosophy and race, and it was just really poetic. I really, really liked how the story set out, and I surprisingly really enjoyed it. And it is still a book that I think about a lot, which I love books that make me still leave me thinking things. That's always a really fun book to read. So that was definitely one for me. And this is no surprise. The next one that was in my top of 2020 was You Should See Me in a Crown. It is so sweet by Leah Johnson. I loved this story so much. There was just something so precious about Liz and her story, and her queer sapphic romance was just really, really sweet. And just like her being able to be embraced for who she was and join the prom court. And it was such a joyful, beautiful story, but also like brought up really serious topics in family and race, then homophobia and what that means. And yes, it's just such a sweet read, and I really, really enjoyed it and really loved it. And that's why it's one of my tops. Okay, well now let's move on to more of the adult reads. Some of these are romance, some of them are like women's fiction. Mostly romance, though. First in the list for the top reads for that is going to be Love Lettering by Kate Claiborne. This is a book that I think I've been thinking about all year. I read it in January, and I was obsessed. I love this story so much. Mostly because the letter, I'm a sucker for like a love letter at the end. Reads love letter. The best. One of the best of all time. And I loved the depiction of her putting things into her lettering, and the art of calligraphy and the art of printing and handwriting. And I just don't think that's an art form that like you see a lot of. So exploring that was really great and really fun. And the romance between the two of them was so, so good. I really, really enjoyed. Yes, all the things. Such a great read. I'm definitely excited to try to read more Kate Claiborne in the future. The next favorite read of 2020, which also comes as probably no surprise, this is on a lot of people's list, I feel like, is Beach Read by Emily Henry. This was a book basically it's actually a book about writer's block. And Emily Henry admits that she was inspired by this book because of writer's block. But the romance was really sweet. These are like two college rivals who are both writers. He's done really well for himself. She writes romance, and she's done really well for herself too, but she's struggling with the loss of her father. So it is a lot about grief, which I didn't anticipate in a romance, but I thought it was balanced well enough that I was able to like get through that part of the story. And I really just enjoyed it a lot. And it was definitely still a book that I think about, and still a book that I enjoyed. The next one, The Beast by Katie Robert. I mean, really, really, pretty much everything I read by Katie Robert was one of my favorites for 2020. I'm not gonna lie. The Wicked Villain series, especially were The Opponent and The Beast, were my two faves of that series. And then Reading Your Dad Will Do was also one of my favorites. So just anything by Katie Robert was just such a joyful experience, and they're really smutty, but they're just so much fun, and I just loved her character so much. I love her writing style so much. All the good things, yes. And this is one of the few indies that I picked up when I went to visit the Red Bodice in LA area, so this is also kind of fun that I actually own a physical copy of my favorite book of the series. It just, yeah, anything that Katie Robert did, I think, was just my favorite of top 2020. But those three in particular were my top three favorites of 2020 from Katie Robert. And the next one I'd say was my top favorite reads of 2020 was The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. This was about two friends who were struggling and being together because of her infertility, and I think that was a really real story to tell. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the chemistry between these two characters. I really felt for them. I love a book that where I feel intense pain at them not being able to be together in my gut. That's, that for me, that's when it's a good book for me. And I definitely felt that between those two characters. And I actually ironically happened to read all of Abby Jimenez's books in 2020, all three of them, even though her third one hasn't come out yet. But I think this one is still my favorite out of the three, out of her books. So Friend Zone, definitely still one of my favorites. And I cannot with this. I obsess about this book all the time. Forbidden by Beverly Jenkins. This was my first Beverly Jenkins I ever read, and I'm so glad it was, because it was excellent and it was so good, and it's my favorite for now. I'm definitely excited to read more of Beverly Jenkins in the new year, because I'm obsessed and I love this story so much. Eddie and Ryan, I love them. I love Ryan. I love the two of them oh so much. I can't even talk about what the book is about. I just love this story oh so much. And please, if you want to give Beverly Jenkins a chance, read anything. But if I would also start with this one. I'm biased, so don't start with. Just read one of them. Just read any of them. Seriously. I loved it. I love that story. The next one that was my favorite read of 2020 was also The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. I just love the story of the romance so much, even though I know it's women's fiction. And it was more Fade to Black, which is not usually the type of romance that I like, but I really enjoyed how the two leads slowly came together, and how because they started sharing their lives with each other by living in the same apartment, they slowly built this relationship. And just the build-up was so well done and so good, and I just really, really enjoyed that. I love a relationship that's well built, in my opinion. So, yes. Really enjoyed that one. I really liked the two of them coming together. I think it was, I forget what her name was, but he was Leon, I think. Leon was so precious. I love them. I just love those characters so much. So yes, definitely one of my top 2020 as well. Next is going to be, this is Nums is no surprise to anyone, because I think there's a lot of top reads for a lot of people. Take a Hint by Dani Brown. Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. Dani Brown and Zaf, I can't even. They were just, Zaf was so sweet. I love the portrayal of a male hero having anxiety. I thought that was really great. I feel like usually you see the woman deal with mental health, not the man. So I love that representation. I love the two of them coming together. The fake dating trope is the epitome of all fake dating tropes, bar none, for sure. I loved it. I loved it. I love this series. I love the Brown sisters. The end. Super enjoyed. And the next favorite I have is going to be Teach Me by Olivia Dade. That was my first Olivia Dade book. I haven't read, spoiler alert, even though I know a lot of people like spoiler alert. I haven't read that one yet. I started with Teach Me, and the fact that they were teachers, Martin being this, and Rose, I think her name's Rose. Man, I'm so good when I remember these characters' names, because otherwise, I can't remember nothing. I think she's Rose, and he's Martin. Martin was such a cinnamon roll. The build-up between the two of them was so good. Rose was the sexy plus-size rep, was so well done. It just makes me so much more excited to read more of Olivia Dade, because everything I read of hers is my fave, but Teach Me was my first and my favorite so far. So highly enjoyed. Really, really well done. Lovely. Next one. The Miserable Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. It definitely wasn't a 5-star for me, but I Love this story. It was so, just because it's, again, a book that I've still been thinking about after I've finished reading it, and still kind of consider, and still kind of go, man, what did that all mean? And what did, like, how could you just live your life, like, how could Addie live her life that way for so long? How exhausting would that be? But also, like, how inspiring would that be as well? It was just, there were so many beautiful things. And again, V. Schwab, same, her and Lanny Taylor are, like, my favorite, like, in terms of beautiful writing. The two of them, their writing is just gorgeous. Like, I just, like, the page, like, is just so poetic. I just love it oh so much. And this was no exception. Definitely, I think, another top read of 2020 for me. To end with, I'm going to go with the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn. Now, I'm not going to say each individual book is my favorite. As far as historical romances go, they're enjoyable, but I think there's better. I've read better. But I think the fact that I read so many of them before the show came out and was able to enjoy the show so much for reading them, and as a whole, I really, really still enjoy this family and enjoy the books. They gave me so much joy in November and December when I read the bulk of them. So I'm just going to give it my favorite reads of 2020 is just being the Bridgerton series, like, and being part of, like, the Instagram and the Discord group that I was a part of to talk about these books was just so much fun. I just really had a lot of fun doing that, which is why it's considered my favorite reads of 2020. I don't think they're my favorite reads of all time, but I just really enjoyed them, and I read them during a time when I think I really needed them, and they were a lot of fun. And then it just made, for me, it made the TV show even more fun to be a part of all of that. So that's why I'm going to say my favorite reads of 2020. They're probably not my favorite books of 2020, like, in general, but I think the experience of them was probably why they were my favorite reads, if that makes sense. Maybe not, but I'm going to go with it. And that is it for my favorite reads of 2020. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below and comment below what your favorite read of 2020 was. I would love to know. If you like what you saw and want to see more from me, please subscribe and like and ring bells. I'd appreciate things. As well as you can follow me on all my social medias below, and you can follow me on all the things. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you again soon. Bye!